What happens when the world's best player walks into the biggest tournament of the year without a single warm-up match behind him? That's the question hanging over Jannik Sinner right now, and honestly, it's not a small one. We talking about the US Open, the last Grand Slam of the season, and the top seed showing up cold. No Montreal, no Cincinnati, nothing. And according to someone who's actually lived through the pressure of a Grand Slam final, that silence says a lot more than any press release ever could. Rusedski, the former world number 4 and a man who's played plenty of high-stakes tennis himself, has been watching this situation unfold, and on his podcast Off Court, he didn't hold back. His read is simple but unsettling. This knee issue is worse than anyone is letting on. Think about it this way. Every single year, without fail, Sinner builds his US Open campaign the same way. He plays a tune-up event, takes a short breather, then flies into New York sharp, rhythm intact, timing dialed in. That's the routine. That's what's worked. And this year, for the first time in a long while, that routine has completely collapsed. Rusedski put it plainly. Almost every top player treats Cincinnati as the final tune-up before New York. You play, you rest a week, and then you're ready. Skipping it isn't just skipping a tournament, it's skipping the whole rhythm-building process. And because Sinner missed it, he's now forced to fly into New York during Grand Slam week itself, with 0 match play under his belt. Rusedski was blunt about the timeline too. If Sinner isn't on the ground by Monday at the very latest, people will start asking the obvious question. Is he really actually going to play? And here's where it gets bigger than one player's fitness. Picture a US Open where both Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz aren't at their best, or worse, aren't there at all. Suddenly the entire tournament flips wide open. Rusedski painted the picture himself. Novak Djokovic, sitting there thinking this could finally be his shot at major title number 25. Alexander Zverev, eyeing a second career slam. And don't sleep on the Americans either. Ben Shelton was arguably the most impressive player on North American hard courts this summer, rolling through Canada without dropping a single set. If the two biggest favorites aren't at full strength, Djokovic and Zverev become the names everyone's circling, with Shelton not far behind. For the final major of the year, that's a seismic shift. But let's zoom out, because New York isn't like any other stop on the calendar. Historically, players who show up without competitive match play, without that week of grinding through real matches, almost never walk away with the trophy. And Rusedski made another point that's easy to overlook. Even with a full season behind him, Sinner has actually looked human at times outside the Masters 1000 level this year. Remember the Australian Open? He was, by most measures, the better player against Djokovic that day. But he couldn't convert the moments that mattered, and Djokovic did what Djokovic always seems to do when the stakes are highest, reminding everyone why he's considered one of the greatest to ever hold a racket. Then there was Paris. Everyone remembers the conversations swirling around heat and how Sinner was managing his body through brutal conditions. Heat management isn't some side note at the US Open. It's often one of the deciding factors of the entire fortnight. New York in late August and early September can be punishing, humid, draining in a way that tests even the fittest athletes on tour. Somehow, Sinner answered those questions at Wimbledon, lifting the title there. But Wimbledon's climate is nowhere close to what New York can throw at players. So where does that leave things? Rusedski did offer one silver lining. The US Open has some flexibility that other majors don't. Tournament organizers can schedule Sinner's matches for evening sessions when temperatures drop and conditions become far more manageable. That alone could be the difference between a body that's still working through a knee issue and a body that's protected just enough to compete at a high level deep into the tournament. It's not a guarantee, but it's a real advantage if the scheduling breaks his way. Still, the bigger question doesn't go away. Can a player walk into a physically demanding slam like the US Open with essentially no match rhythm and still find his best tennis when it matters most? History says it's incredibly difficult. The players who lift that trophy in September are usually the ones who arrived battle-tested, not the ones stepping onto Arthur Ashe Stadium for the first real test of their season. That's the shadow hanging over Sinner's title defense, and why Rusedski's comments have cut through so much of the pre-tournament noise. Of course, none of this means Sinner is out. He's still the world number 1 for a very good reason, and champions have a way of proving doubters wrong when the lights are brightest. But the questions are legitimate, and they are not going away until we see him step onto the court. Will the knee hold up through best-of-5 tennis? Will the lack of match play show up in his footwork and explosiveness on big points? Or will he defy the odds and find a level nobody expected? One thing is certain. This US Open carries more uncertainty at the top of the men's draw than we've seen in a long time. And if Sinner's knee really is as serious as Rusedski suspects, the ripple effects could reshape how we remember this entire season. Let's talk about what this actually means for the draw itself. When a top seed enters a slam without match toughness, it's not just about the first round. It's about stamina deep into the second week. Best-of-5 tennis punishes any physical weakness that hasn't been tested under real pressure. If Sinner's movement is even slightly compromised, opponents will find it, target it, and force him to defend it point after point. That's the brutal math of Grand Slam tennis, and it doesn't care about rankings. There's also a mental side rarely talked about enough. Walking into a Grand Slam opener without knowing if your body will hold up creates a different kind of pressure than facing an opponent across the net. Athletes talk about trusting their legs, trusting their explosiveness on a big return. Any hesitation there can be the difference between winning a point and handing it away. That's the invisible battle Sinner will be fighting alongside whoever's on the other side of the net. And think about the field waiting for him. Djokovic has shown flashes of his best tennis all year, chasing history with every tournament he enters. Zverev has been consistently dangerous on hard courts and knows what it takes to go deep in New York. Shelton has the crowd, the serve, and now the confidence of a statement run through Canada. Add in a handful of dangerous floaters, and you've got a tournament that genuinely could crown a surprise champion if the top of the draw stumbles. So keep an eye on New York. Keep an eye on that knee, on the practice reports, on whatever update comes from Team Sinner before the tournament begins. Whichever way this goes, it's going to say a lot about who truly owns this era of men's tennis.